Have you ever looked at a runway in a dark area at night and wondered when to start descending? Were you concerned about wires and trees and wished there was a VASI?
Landing from a non-precision approach at night takes a lot of care. There have been instances where airplanes have descended into unlighted ridges, trees, or wires while descending from the MDA with the runway in sight. Visual descent points, VDPs, have been added to many non-precision approaches.
VDPs are a defined point on the final approach course from which, provided the runway is in sight, a normal descent from the MDA to the touchdown portion of the runway would be obstruction-free.
VDPs are usually DME or GPS fixes, but could be any approved navigational fix. Approach charts show the VDP as a V on the profile view. No special technique other than identifying the VDP is required to use the visual descent point. Where there is a VDP, descent below the MDA should not be made before passing the VDP and having the runway in sight. Where there is a VASI, the VDP is positioned where the VASI slope intersects the lowest MDA. When you are at the VDP and at the MDA, you should also see on-approach slope indications from the VASI.
The VDP is not a mandatory part of the procedure. If the aircraft is not equipped to identify the VDP, fly the approach as though the VDP isn't there.
Don't confuse the VDP with the missed approach point. The missed approach point on a non-precision approach is not designed with any consideration as to where the aircraft must begin a descent to a safe landing. For example, the VDP on this localizer at Reno is 3.3 miles from the missed approach point.
While the DME fixes used for VDPs are not mandatory, DME is often used on ILS, localizer, and VOR approaches to define required fixes.
This ILS or localizer DME approach at Rock Springs, Wyoming, which doesn't have an outer marker, requires DME to identify HEBM, the 7.7 DME fix. The DME frequency is the UHF frequency paired with a localizer frequency, 109.3 MHz. Note the DME fix symbols indicate the IRKS DME fix. The localizer DME backcourse approach at Redding, California uses DME fixes off the Redding VOR DME instead of the localizer. The DME distance symbols show the VOR DME identifier, RDD. At Klamath Falls, Oregon, this approach to runway 14 uses the Klamath Falls VORTAC to define step-down fixes on the final approach segment as well as the missed approach point. Step-down fixes are defined points which allow descent to a lower altitude. They may be DME or any other navigational fix. Step down from 5,600 to 5,200 feet is authorized at the 5 DME fix, and at the 4 DME fix to the MDA of 4,680 feet. On some approaches, the step-down fix is optional. At Paynesville in Ohio, the approach has an optional step-down fix. If the 7 DME fix from the Chardon VOR DME is identified, the minimum descent altitude is 100 feet lower. Whenever DME is part of the approach, particularly on ILS and localizer approaches, you must be sure that you are using the right DME. It can be part of the ILS and the localizer frequency, or the DME distance can be from a nearby VORTAC. Be certain that you are using the correct DME. If you are using GPS, double-check that the distance shown is from the correct waypoint.